The Great Atlantic Sargassum Belt is the largest seaweed bloom in the world, and it's expanding. Visible from space, it's a growing problem for coastal communities.
The beaches, genuinely, if they aren't maintained, you just can't go there. You'd be up to your knees in sargassum.
But as a key sequester of carbon, this invasive species also presents an opportunity.
We want to gather sargassum using robotic vehicles. If you sink it down to 1,000 meters, our current model suggests that that particular water body does not come back in contact with the atmosphere for at least 100 years.
Can scientists take a global challenge and turn it into an opportunity to buy time in the race against climate change? Sargassum has been in the Atlantic since the time of Christopher Columbus. Floating mats of seaweed that gave its name to the Sargasso Sea, a nutrient-poor patch of the Atlantic penned in by ocean currents.
You can think of it as a floating rainforest or an upside-down coral reef, because each raft of sargassum is a hotspot of biological activity.
But in the last couple of decades, a new population has emerged, further south, near the coast of Brazil and the Caribbean.
In 2011, we were all taken back by this new phenomenon where we saw tons of sargassum being brought and beached in the region.
Based in Barbados, scientist and entrepreneur Shelley-Ann Cox specialises in fisheries management. She first noticed the impact of sargassum on the sea urchin divers she was working with.
Fisherfolk have reported, sargassum mats as far as their eyes can see. Some of them can't get to the boats, or the boats can't get through the sargassum to get out. Those near shore, the spearfishers as well, they reported some of their skin being irritated when they're diving, and the berries that keep the sargassum floating have gotten into their ears as well.
The impact on tourism, the lifeblood of the Caribbean, has been huge.
This weed is going right up to the desalination plant by Barnacle Point. People, get ready for the smell tomorrow.
Around the same time, other scientists working in the Atlantic had also noticed a change. Oceanographer Ajit Subramaniam has been working in the South Atlantic for more than 25 years.
In 2018, it was astounding how much sargassum we ran into. And it was really striking. It was something that we had never seen before. And then, bam, we were there, and the ship was often surrounded by sargassum that was hundreds of meters around the ship.
Sargassum wasn't thought to be found this far south.
We were seeing things that we had not seen before, and I was trying to get context for that.
Ajit linked up with colleagues at the University of South Florida who'd been making their own observations.
They'd been actually watching this in their satellite data. And they had actually seen this explosion of this new population that is growing much closer to the equator.
With the satellite data, scientists were able to hazard an estimate of its size.
24.2 million metric tons in June from the satellite imagery.
Dubbed the Great Atlantic Sargassum Belt, this is almost certainly the world's largest macroalgal bloom. It's thought that intensive agriculture, especially soya plantations, has increased nitrogen concentrations in the Atlantic, causing rapid sargassum growth.
Sargassum is really known as a symptom of climate change because due to increased sea surface temperatures, nutrients from the Amazon and Congo, Saharan dust, which brings in iron, upwelling as well, the change in currents, all of these factors have led to the proliferation of sargassum.
Outside of the Caribbean, I don't think many people are talking about it.
Harshini Vamadi is a biology major undergraduate who's recently returned from an exploratory trip to the Dominican Republic.
It affects the Caribbean and I believe West Africa, and a bit of East Asia as well.
Harshini is part of an interdisciplinary team from the Georgia Institute of Technology. They're working with the School of Biological Sciences to try and explore solutions to the sargassum problem.
Yeah, so I'm just collecting some sargassum samples, and there are lots of different plants in here.
I am the biology major on our team. We have a chemical engineer, a civil engineer, a mechanical engineer.
A solution of some sort is definitely needed, and urgently.
I just didn't realize how much of it there would be. Like, we watched a cleanup crew work, and in 2 hours they hardly made a dent. The growth just seems to be almost exponential.
While there aren't many creative small-scale craft uses of sargassum, local communities have yet to find a viable solution to disposing of vast quantities of the stuff, or even better, making it useful.
It uptakes a lot of different heavy metals, particularly arsenic, which makes it quite dangerous to use as, say, like a fertilizer, because again, now you're introducing arsenic to these land systems where it could potentially leach into groundwater. So we tried to branch out from fertilizer. One of our team members focused on an application involving bricks. Someone else focused on black soldier fly larvae, which could consume the sargassum and then in turn be used as a sort of biofuel in an anaerobic digester. I personally have been working on using it as a bioaccumulant. Why not use it in wastewater treatment? It can absorb those heavy metals that, we were so concerned about in the first place.
Harshini's team are working on ways to make the sargassum financially viable. Meanwhile, Ajit is thinking more broadly, exploring the bigger checks and balances of the global carbon cycle. He's come up with a radical plan.
So the way we want to do this is essentially gather nets of sargassum using robotic vehicles, have them ballasted, and then sink them down to 1,000 to 2,000 meters.
Sargassum sequesters a lot of carbon, but it also releases it when it decays. This approach would theoretically remove the carbon from the atmosphere, effectively buying the planet time in the race against climate change.
Sink it down to 1,000 meters. Our current model suggests that that particular water body does not come back in contact with the atmosphere for at least 100 years.
The idea of sinking the sargassum has been proposed before, but the suggestion is usually to sink it where it grows, in shallower water.
Merely capturing it at the surface and getting rid of it just off the beach at 100 meters or something like that will basically have the carbon coming right back up. It might even actually come back up in a more potent form if you're starting to have it rotting and forming methane.
Ajit plans to sink the sargassum in deeper water, but there are a lot of questions still to be answered.
We want to make sure that the carbon that we are capturing is actually going down to the seafloor and will stay down there. And so we want to follow it down with a submersible.
In addition, as a biologist, he's keen to understand the impact of this plan on the ecosystem.
So we actually have a fisheries scientist on the team who will be looking at what kind of communities the sargassum rafts harbor, and therefore we'll have a sense of what we might be impacting if we were to do the sinking. It's not that we're going to decimate the ocean of sargassum.
The list of problems attributed to sargassum is growing, from the harmful gases released when it decays to its impact on wildlife.
Especially when it washes up on beaches where turtles go to lay their eggs, a lot of these baby turtles are actually unable to climb over these sargassum things, and so they're unable to make it into the ocean due to these big patches of sargassum.
So every year we're seeing more countries reporting the influx and the catastrophic impacts on the tourism, fisheries sectors, maritime and transport, and then the health impacts. So some of our colleagues recently published a paper on the impacts on pregnant women who were exposed to hydrogen sulfide and ammonia when the sargassum decomposes. Those pregnant ladies who live near the coast and were exposed were at a higher risk of preeclampsia.
Going into the future, it's likely that the challenge presented by sargassum, like many of the challenges of climate change, might be bigger than one scientist or one idea.
There needs to be some sort of economically driven, or it needs to be governmental subsidized, but there needs to be some sort of way to tackle and solve the problem.
I feel that countries like Barbados are the populations that contributed least to climate change and yet are facing the greatest impact of climate change. I would like to figure out a financing model where we can actually have credit going to communities in Barbados for the carbon that is sequestered.
There are lots of bright, brilliant minds out there developing solutions that need the support. They need the financial support to upscale Until governments realize that this problem is really here to stay, then they will be willing then in investing in building out sargassum industries.
Nothing has had any concrete potential yet. There's just several isolated research groups, but I just think that things would move a lot faster if everyone could work together.